Hello, all you ghosts and goblins out there. I am Andrew.
I'm Ashton.
And I'm Sean.
We are the Night Scholars, exploring the mystifying world of cryptids, ghosts, ghouls, and all things supernatural. Today, we'll be talking about the mighty and terrifying Navajo Skinwalker. How are you guys doing today?
You know, it's been a pretty good day. I rescued a cat this morning. So,
It's always a good sign.
yeah.
That's
It's
always
adorable. I've already named it Waluigi because I found it in the wall of my outside storage unit.
Oh, that's
amazing.
good. And
That's
you're
amazing.
sure it's a cat, right? Not a.
Not a cryptid.
You know, I'm not the best at figuring that out, but I'm sure it will be fine.
If it starts speaking to you, then you know, maybe you should be a little worried.
Now,
It has a register of wailing.
if it starts speaking to you, you go on tour and say, "Hey, look at this crazy cool thing I found," and make loads of money. Nothing can go wrong with that.
Yeah, absolutely nothing. All right, Sean, why don't you go ahead and kick us off here? Tell us a little bit about the Skinwalker.
All right, so the Skinwalker was surprisingly hard to find scholarly research on. There's a lot of different accounts of where it comes from, but most people agree that it originated with the Navajo tribes as a creature that literally wears the skin of another person and disguising themselves as whatever they want to be in the moment.
Well, it's not necessarily another person. It's they can transform into any animal that they wear the skin of. A lot in most stories you hear, a lot of times they'll take on the appearance of like a deer, but the deer, of course, won't look quite right and it won't move like a regular deer will. It'll be kind of
Interesting.
jerky.
I actually have heard opposite, that it's more a coyote, cougar, or a bear. And in the Navajo tribes, they actually do not wear the skin of predators because of these creatures. Instead, they will wear deers and other things because that is what the creature is known to not turn into.
Oh, really?
That's pretty smart, actually.
That is. I didn't know that. I was thinking of more of the stories I heard about encounters of them, which, from what you said, sound like they might have been less than reputable. So, if you're actually getting it from, the Navajo, what they say, that's probably more right than what I thought. So,
Yeah, I'll defer to Ashton on this one.
Yeah. And what's also interesting is that they have a very distinctive appearance of having these glowing red eyes like hot coals. But there have also been other reports of the eyes being yellow as well.
That's one thing I was always able to find in the research I was able to find is that they'll look almost right. There will be always something off about them, whether it's the glowing eyes or just something that's they're not quite a human, not quite an animal. That gives pause to people who look at them.
I've also heard stories of when they are, I guess, disguised as an animal. Sometimes their eyes will still be like unsettlingly human. Like imagine looking at your puppy dog in the eyes and it looks like it's human eyes. That would freak you out, right?
That would be a little uncomfortable.
Or if they were glowing red or yellow, that'd probably be worse, to be honest.
Well, with how many animals Ashton has, she's probably seen a glowing and eyed cat by this point.
I mean, is that not common for everybody's cats?
I mean, I've seen
don't
them.
Think so.
I've seen them shine. I wouldn't say glow.
Yeah, if there's no light hitting them and they're glowing, you're probably in a little bit of danger there. But aren't you always in danger if you own a cat?
Probably, but at least my cats, whenever they happen to run outside, at least they have like footprints that show up, like as opposed to skinwalkers who their tracks just like mysteriously disappear.
I've
And
heard
so do their
that.
victims.
I've heard that in different stories.
I haven't seen that. I've seen that their footprints can be too heavy since there's something inside of it.
Interesting. Yeah, I've also seen like there's been reported police reports where human tracks or animal tracks will just suddenly turn into human tracks too. Like there's like a lot of reportings over at the Skinwalker Ranch of that.
I did see a lot of information about the Skinwalker Ranch, most of it contradictory.
Yes, so a lot of that I was listening to an interview today with the oh, what was his name? Anyways, one of the property managers, I think, and he was saying that because it's such a small town, it's really easy for the stories to just get out of control because a story is only good if you can continue to embellish it.
Now the stories. So they've encountered one, or is it just the footprints?
Yeah, there are a lot of reports in this small town of people who have had experiences with it, with skinwalkers. Right, there was a woman who was delivering newspapers in the early morning who reported hearing scratching in her vehicle. When she opened the door, she found a person that was a half man, half animal with glowing red eyes, and it was reaching for her baby. She hit the gas in her car, and the skinwalker was able to keep pace with her, and it only gave up once she made it to a gas station.
Wow.
And they're right.
That's terrifying.
Yeah. Like I'm wondering why it stopped when she got to the gas station.
They probably don't like being seen by too many people at one time.
Things like it could be things like that have more power when they're at the edge of civilization and picking off lone people instead of large groups.
It's true. And it could be that the sun was starting to come up since she was doing a newspaper route as well. Because I think that they're mostly lurkers in the night.
That's what I've heard, is they mainly come out at night.
Mainly.
Now, I believe, don't skinwalkers also use a poison, a powder? That's they call it corpse dust.
Yes, I've heard that too.
And it is often ground infant bones, which kind of goes back to where you were talking about it was reaching for her child.
Yeah.
And maybe it was thinking about taking the child to turn it into the powder that they use to poison their victims.
It might, because I know, like, because there's the TV show, obviously, about Skinwalker Ranch. And there are a lot of things that happen that have been eyewitness reports that the History Channel will not show just because they don't want to be associated with whatever it is that's happening. And so I think that that's a very viable possibility.
Yeah, now Skinwalker Ranch itself will be a whole nother episode, because it's not only dealing with the Navajo Skinwalker legend. They have all kinds of stuff going on, like different types of spirits and UFOs, and a lot of glowing lights, like orbs, from what I hear.
Yeah,
right.
Like I said, the Skinwalker isn't confined just to the Navajo, but it's just where that specific term comes up most often. Other cultures have been told about shapeshifters or with similar powers.
Oh yeah, I mean it's there's the whole what is it, there's doppelgangers, there's flesh gates.
Flesh gates, I haven't heard that one before.
They are shapeshifters. That one might be more in the realm of fiction than this is. But that's kind of a trope that goes around, to something pretending to be something else, because it really falls into the uncanny valley as well, right? Like, say you see a coyote in the woods, right? But it's moving jaggedly, right?
Right.
It's jerky and it's moving. It's not moving like how a coyote would.
Yeah, it could just have been very well a way to explain away missing children and things that you thought you saw in the woods. Like, hey, I saw something. This would make an interesting story. Not to discredit anybody who's actually encountered those, but that's what some reviews have said, that this was just a way to explain mysterious circumstances.
I mean, you could say that about just about anything, but there are still all of the reports about just, I think what we were saying earlier about how people have seen these animals with like these very like strange characteristics, like the human like eyes, the glowing redness in their eyes. There was another report of somebody seeing this strange, frightening creature on the ranch that was wolf-like, but it was 3 times bigger, and it was completely undaunted by shots that were fired at it.
How very
Yes,
terrifying.
I do hear they are extremely hard to kill. I know a good way to protect yourself from them is by using white ash, normally like cedar ash from your fireplace. Putting that around the outside of your house is supposed to help ward them off. But from what I've read, apparently they are extremely difficult to take down. If you
Yeah, I think you have to like use that white ash that you were talking about and like rub that on a knife, and that's the only way you can kill it, is using that specific powder.
yeah, it's just dipped in white ash, and even what I'm reading here it says that might not work. I mean, you have to be pretty accurate apparently with it. And they're normally also supposedly stronger and faster than humans. So that's
Most things are.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, humans are actually exceptionally weak for being the apex. Oh, considered to be the apex species.
Well, that's because we just have a habit of making everything stronger than us as work for us.
And that's true. I mean, like we've adapted, with weapons and things to where like we don't got to worry about an elephant, or rhino or bear running into our house because we have shelter here, and we have weapons to defend ourselves. But like the human by themselves is extremely what's the word? Fragile.
That's a good word for it.
But back on the topic here.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, have you guys seen the reports about like it allegedly being its own kind of like conscious entity and it's able to control the minds of people?
I have seen that. I've also seen where they say it can like steal a person's face and disguise itself as that person.
Yeah,
And
I
live
think
their life.
that's where I think the term Skinwalker came from. It stole its skin.
Well, normally it's that because they use the skins of animals, but I have heard about the kind of possession thing you're talking about as well.
Yeah, like they're able to read minds, they're able to control the actions of humans, they bring disease, death, and destruction to tribes. They're able to run super fast, jump high, and move without leaving tracks. And it's so crazy. Like, I don't know if we've actually discussed like what makes somebody into a skinwalker, but
I was never able to find a general consensus on that.
Yeah. So it's somebody who used to be a shaman or a medicine man of a tribe who does an unspeakable act of killing one of their family members in order to acquire these skills.
It takes a conscious act of evil to turn into a skinwalker.
Oh, yes.
Yes, like they purposely delve into this act of evil to be able to acquire this dark magic. And apparently they are also very well known for, after doing this, engaging in other like very taboo acts such as cannibalism, necrophilia, and incest.
I have heard of that. I think a lot of things to do with the cannibalism part of it goes into another. I think it's Algonquin more so than Navajo, which is the Wendigo, which will be a different episode.
Right.
Which is
Yeah,
another evil spirit or evil creature with Native American lore.
And that is one thing that's going to be very common, is people mistaking these things for the other.
That is something I ran into with research a lot. Is a lot of times they'll use them interchangeably, which if you look here, they are very different things.
Mm-hmm.
But there are also things that Native people don't like to speak about. For me, like Skinwalkers in general, you're not really supposed to talk about them, right?
right.
Like I know if you mention them by what their actual name is, the actual native name for them, apparently it will draw them closer to you. But you're not really supposed to talk about them, think about them, write about them, or anything.
Name them something.
Yeah.
But that makes getting information on them extremely difficult.
It is. Like, I know Robert Bigelow, who was one of the previous owners of the Skinwalker Ranch, like, refuses to talk about it. And it's kind of goes back and forth on whether or not he's actually seen something that's just so terrible that he won't talk about it, or if he's even under a potential NDA.
Let's see. And he's the one that had to deal with the wolf that was 3 times the size it was supposed to be, right? The one that was I think it was killing his cows, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And he sold the ranch, I believe, in 2004 to the new owners. Or 2016 is when it was purchased.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that recently.
Yeah, it was sold as is.
Like when you think about the story, you think, oh man, this was like the 70s, right? 60s, 70s, 80s, back when a lot of people started getting, especially in the 80s, with the whole satanic panic deal going on. A lot of paranormal investigators came from that.
Uh-huh.
I didn't realize it was that recent that all the things at the Skinwalker Ranch happened.
Yeah, the person who owns it now, Brandon Fugel, I think he was really just had like a fascination for all of this, and in just the short amount of time that he's lived there, he has gone from like a skeptic to like a full-on believer.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that. I listened to a last podcast on the Left series. They did a series on Skinwalker Ranch, which was really interesting. Which we should do an episode, at least a couple episodes on Skinwalker Ranch if when we get that research done for it and all that.
Definitely sounds like a good future episode.
Yeah, because there's so much like UFO activity going on there too, and like all of these like allegations about like NASA and these government agencies that went and did reports. Like there's a bunch of crazy stuff.
I remember another one of him dealing with like a giant like shadow creature at one point. That it doesn't sound like a skinwalker to me because it didn't really have much of a form, right? So I'm really interested in what that might have been. I mean, shadow figures are just
that could be anything.
Yeah, they're
so vague.
Yeah.
I mean, I look forward to doing more research for that.
Yeah, I think our future episodes are going to be a lot more fun because they're going to be more specific than just Skinwalker, which overlaps several things.
No, it does. What I was saying before is, you're not really supposed to, speak about them or talk about them. What I found interesting is we were talking about the different things it could change into here. Apparently, it can also turn to an eagle, an owl, or a crow, so that they are capable of flight as well.
Ooh,
interesting.
That's a terrifying one. Didn't see that one.
At least that's according to the Cryptid Wiki, which, you take that with a grain of salt, of course. But which is really interesting, which means they can travel long distances very fast. Most of the stories you hear though is most recent stories. They'll be either in the woods and they'll chase them. They'll run as fast as they can, but they never seem to get further from it. Or like you said with the woman who was she delivering papers? You said, or
delivering newspapers.
Yeah, and it was able to keep up with her vehicle, which that is something that is very common. So they're able to travel extremely fast.
Yes. Let's see. And like, because I know like they also are able. Do you know what position they're normally in? Are they normally on their hind legs, or are they normally standing like humans?
They go in between. Most of the stories I hear is the last, right? Like you go to you look at people's encounters with them. They'll say, "Oh, I'm seeing this animal. It's just standing there. It's watching me, though," and I could hear it. Well, I'll go into that in a moment. That's the thing I didn't mention before. A lot of times people see them on their hind legs once they've spotted them. Like they'll stand up and let I'm here, right?
Yeah, that's one of the stories that I found also was just that a farmer went to go check out laughing that he heard in a sheep pen. And then suddenly the ram just rose up on its hind legs and walked like a human.
Yeah, like they want you to know that they're not that animal and they're watchful once they're ready for that, of course.
Right.
So
So
another.
what
Oh,
what do they do once they grab a human? Because I think like all of the sightings that we've seen so far have just been
people that got away, which you're not going to hear the ones that where they got caught. It is believed though that they take that corpse powder that I was talking about before and they blow it in the victim's face and they killed them. I don't know what they do with the body after that. Probably some taboo act, I would imagine.
yeah.
Nothing good. Nothing good once they catch them. I can tell you that. They're not your friends. Now, actually, what they do as well. You were talking about how they can read minds before, which is really interesting because they are also known for mimicking voices.
Interesting.
Like
Okay.
picture this: you're walking through the woods. It's just about to get dark. You're trying to make it back to your car after a little walk, little hike, right?
Mm-hmm.
You hear your mother's voice calling you from deeper into the forest, right?
Yeah.
And she says, like,
Ashton, come here. Come here.
you're thinking in your head, my mom's not here, right? It doesn't make any sense. But they're calling to
I,
you, and they're trying to get you to come over to them. And how do they know the voice, right?
right. Well, I guess because they've been my sheep watching me this entire time. Or my cat,
Yeah,
because apparently you guys are saying that my cat
there's your
should not
cat.
be.
Like think about that.
I mean, you found it in your walls, Ash. This
You
is on
hear
you.
you hear a knock, you hear a scratch on your window or knock at your door, and you hear Will speaking to you from the other side. Not quite right though. They apparently never get the voice quite right. A lot of times they'll say it's distorted, like listening to an old radio, right?
Interesting.
So
Yeah.
you hear
Actually,
that, and
apparently
you look
Will
up.
hears me all the time when I'm not around.
Yeah, that's concerning.
Okay, so what if my grandparents actually just do sound like an old distorted radio, though? What then?
I mean, are they in the middle of the woods or at your house? You should know where people are around you. I mean, if you hear someone knocking at your door at 3 a.m. or scratching at your door, there's a lot of scratching more so than knocking.
I mean, I think you should invite it in. I mean, like, clearly it's in distress.
Yeah, don't. I know you should never let it in. Same thing with the black-eyed children. If you have kids show up at your door at 3 a.m., turn them away. Don't let them in, especially if they ask to come in. Right? They're asking permission. That's even worse.
No, see, the children show up to the door any time of the day. Turn them away. That's
No, they're just being polite. You should really not be discouraging good manners.
This is coming from a woman who adopted the demon cat.
Now, the thing with skinwalkers, too, apparently, they have a smell about them. I think you have research on that, Ashton?
I do not. They have a smell.
I haven't found anything about that.
I might be thinking of Wendigos, but apparently they do. Let me double check my notes here.
I think you might be thinking of the Wendigo.
I mean, they are cave dwellers, potentially, so it might make sense that they have a smell.
I mean, a lot of what it is a sign of dread, or a feeling of dread, will overtake you when they are.
But that's just how I feel when I talk to Sean.
That's what I'm good for.
Now, they also, a lot of times, again, will call you by your name, which, means they've probably been watching you for a while, or it could be the mind reading thing.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Like, I mean, I know that there's the Skinwalker Ranch,
Now,
but for the most part, with this being a Navajo legend,
so what I'm,
and the fact that they do disguise themselves as members of the tribe throughout the day,
oh, they do, yes.
so they would know everybody, so it would be really easy for them to know everything about you and to be able to draw you when you're least expecting it. Because to you, they would just be a trusted member of the tribe. Like, you wouldn't know that they committed this act to change into this creature.
Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. Now, I found the thing on the odor of them. It does say it is common fact that skinwalkers leave a putrid odor in every location they walk. It's not the same as the smell of death that the Wendigo gives off.
Interesting.
They do apparently have an odor, though. So, looking at the article here from Mystic Beasts, I'm just going to read it. It says, what to do. Number 1, don't gaze in the eyes. Never whistle in the middle of the night. Immediately leave the area. Don't gaze in the eyes. Don't be terrified. And make sure the curtains are drawn before you go to bed. Which the whole don't be terrified thing, like, what are you going to do? Right? You're going to be scared to see this thing. What do you mean don't be terrified?
I mean, if you're Ashton, you're going to look it right in the eyes and try and be its best friend.
Hey, they need friends too.
Yeah, I don't think you want to be friends with it, Ashton.
That is just very cryptidist of you.
No, I suppose. I mean,
you heard it. You heard it here first. Cryptidist is now a thing.
It is.
No, I did forget about the whistling thing. The first time that I heard about the Skinwalkers was in a story over on Corpse Husband's page. I can't remember who the actual writer was, but they were whistling, and I think they were whistling like on a camping trip, and they kept getting onto this guy, and he just kept like whistling, and that like ended up drawing them, and they never left the tent, so they ended up being safe. But it was like this entire night of them just seeing like shadows like lurking around.
Oh yeah, they definitely brought if not a skinwalker, something else. You're never supposed to whistle at night because apparently it draws any wandering spirits to you.
No wonder I always feel cold at night.
You used to live in a haunted place, didn't you, Sean? Did you ever experience any skinwalkers there, buddy?
No skinwalkers, just ghosts and possibly a demon, depending on who you ask in that house. Definitely ghosts, though. Those are stories for another episode.
Yeah.
And the fact that Sean is still alive is just a disappointment to us all.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so you can't be his friend, but you gotta be friends with the Skinwalker. Is that what I'm hearing?
Look, I've tried to be friends with Sean, but he's just not creepy enough.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I think Ashton is the first person to ever say I'm not creepy enough.
That's like the worst thing ever. Someone telling you you're creepy.
No, I think the worst thing ever is to be told you're boring.
Yeah, but boring is safe. People like safe. You know what's not safe? Skinwalkers.
It's not safe is having these conversations.
Yeah, I know.
Right. I mean, the amount of times that we have said Skinwalker throughout this just basically guarantees that one of us is going to die tomorrow.
Pretty much.
By tomorrow.
That's all right. I live in Appalachia. There's all kind. I mean, there's everything in these forests.
I live in a pretty decently populated area. It'd be difficult to track me down specifically.
Oh, I mean, they don't need help tracking you down. They don't track you the same way that a person would.
Fair.
Yeah, again, you're not really supposed to speak about them. We might be okay because we're not referring to it
by their name,
by the actual name. We're using the English translation, which hopefully kind of separates us a bit.
That's true. I was at some point going to be pretentious and mention them by real name. I'm kind of glad that I did not memorize how to actually say it.
That would be bad if you had.
Oh, it's fine. Your cats will protect you.
Look, I literally just got a cat out of the wall today.
It's very Edgar Allan
I
Poe.
feel like I have some good karma.
Yeah, hopefully.
Ah,
But then again, as the proprietor of the lot says that, the forces we are dealing with have command over space-time and over the environment in a way that is unexplained, that is baffling and disturbing. So it's not like I actually know what I'm talking about when we're dealing with creatures that have control over space-time.
do
Yeah.
any of us really know what we're talking about out today?
And again, it's hard to find credible information because the native people don't like talking about them for reasons we've already mentioned.
Most of the articles I found talk about how it was Americanized,
It was.
and how they took the stories and made them. I saw one calling it the American vampire.
It kind of is, right? No, of course, in all seriousness, talking about it, Native American history and stories and lore, whatever you say, has a lot of great things, but a lot of interesting stories that aren't, evolved around Wendigos and Skinwalkers. Those are just the ones that Americans, we'll call them English Americans, right? Not natives.
Right.
Really are fascinated by. We are. A lot of people are fascinated by things that go bump in the night.
That's the point of this podcast.
It sure is, buddy. Sure is. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
If you want to look into more of their stories, don't ask Native people about Skinwalkers or Wendigos. They don't like talking about them. Don't ask them about them. It's disrespectful. But
Right. Because if you really want to dive into their history, you can look into the 1878 Navajo witch purge, which is
Wow.
when they were able to return back to their native lands, and like the U.S. Army had kicked them out, and they returned. But upon returning, they suffered a lot of illness and death, and they really associated it with the Skinwalkers and the witches. And they found a lot of like artifacts that were associated with witches, and they ended up killing about 40 members of their tribe. And that's really like where somebody should go if they want to see more of like the authentic history of the Navajos and the Skinwalkers.
yeah, it is because Skinwalkers themselves are believed to be evil witches, basically, right?
Yeah.
Evil sorcerers, whatever you want to call them. Which, yeah, that could explain a lot of where the lore and the stories of them come from. And most stories, like if you look up now, Skinwalker encounter, Skinwalker stories, you're going to hear some telling by some white guy who saw one in the forest, or it could have been a weird looking deer.
Right.
But anyway, if you think you may be near one, you can smell it, you hear something scratching at your window, calling you by your name.
Answer it.
No, don't look outside. Just I used to stay in a house where I would hear footsteps in the attic all the time. I just turned the TV up and pretended it wasn't there. Normally in situations like this, if you act like it isn't there and you just get away from where it's at, you'll probably be okay. If it follows you and tracks you down and kills you, that's unfortunate. But you'll probably be all right if you just leave the area.
Right. Fear of a name only increases fear of the object itself.
We're going to quote that here. All right.
Loosely quoting Hermione Granger here.
Oh, I see.
Paraphrase.
All right, but do you have any other information, Ashton or Sean?
Nope. We've pretty much covered everything I was able to find. And the information is out there, but it's very contradictory. So make your own conclusions on what's true and what's not.
Now, what do we think, guys? Do we think it exists? I think it does.
I think it could have. I'm not sure if it still does.
What do you think?
I don't know. I definitely think that there are a lot of mysteries out there that we don't know the answer to. And why not make it supernatural?
Yeah, I agree. All right, I suppose that wraps us up then. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
All
Thank
right,
you.
All right. This was a fun.
This-
I look forward to doing this again and with y'all in the future.
Yeah, we'll be back within about a week's time with another episode. We haven't decided what it's going to be on yet. We'll discuss that, but thank you again, our ghosts and goblins, for listening to the Night Scholars. You all be good to each other. Don't answer the scratching at your window.
Or do.
But most importantly, stay safe out there.
Good night.